Hi, Steve.
Sorry about that. I had my microphone off because we're getting ready to go live. So I got a good clean image of you, so that's the good news,
Hi,
and
Steve.
and we have good audio.
Yeah, your audio is good.
Hold on. Where's my video? How come I can't see you in here? Sorry about that. I had my microphone off because we're getting ready to go live. So I got a good clean image of you. Oh, the feedback was coming in from LinkedIn. How come I don't have any guest with video? Oh, that's it. Okay. Oh, I got you. Okay, cool. Good. I'm gonna turn off my audio and we'll get ready and go start the show in a few minutes. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Hey. Hey. You hear me well? I try another audio setup. Just want to know if you hear me well. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Today is Tuesday, October 11th, 2022, and doing our first. Let's call it a hard live Twitch slash LinkedIn slash. Well, in any case, it's live show, and so this would be, I guess, show number one, which is kind of fun. Um, I had a lot of coffee this morning, but honestly, I think it's just because show number one, I can feel it a little bit. So I got a little butterflies and all that. So that's always kind of fun. And we have an interesting guest today. So just wanted to, first of all, take a moment to introduce him. Hopefully, I'll pronounce his name correctly. I learned how to spell it this week. So it's Ben Costantini. And Ben's a really interesting guy. I met Ben. He worked with us on B2B Rocks this summer. He helped put together, I think it was the World Cup of Pitch, or I can't remember what our final name was in the end. So we had a huge pitch competition. It was really interesting to see all these young companies and their great ideas. Um, and then he also worked as MC, which is really interesting because I worked as an MC, and it was the first time I had ever done that. And it's always great when you have somebody mentor you, and you can never get enough mentorship, no matter what career you decide to pursue. So anyhow, with that, without too much more ado, let me bring in Ben. Let me see. This is the first time I've actually brought in a guest, or not the second time I brought in a guest. Let's see if this works. It actually did. It worked better than the first time. The first time I had that kind of there. So Ben, just so you know, you're live. Can you hear us? Okay.
Yeah. Hi, Steve.
Hi. Nice to meet you. So Ben is kind of a serial entrepreneur. I don't want to steal too much of his thunder, but he's a serial entrepreneur. He's done a lot of different stuff. And I guess we met when you were helping us with B2B Rocks, and you also helped us doing the MCing. So just out of curiosity, how did you get your start doing MCing? Because you had a lot of advice for me, which was really useful. And where'd you get your start there?
That's a good question. I think officially the first time I did an emceeing gig was at Le Web 2014, where I was hosting one of the stages during the 2 days of the conference, and that was like a big first, meaning that from never doing this and doing it live in front of 500 people or something like that during 2 days with a lot of pressure. That was a first, I think. Probably have done like smaller things before, like moderating or interviewing speakers, but emceeing, which is a different type of work, I think it was the first time.
Yeah. And did anything go wrong your first time? Does anything stand out? Anything? Because
I didn't have the problem you had, last June with the wind blowing half of your stage and you had to reschedule everything. That wasn't my case. What I probably, someone being late or, a speaker canceling last minute for whatever reason, and maybe you have to accommodate changes. That's kind of the type of thing that I would probably faced. But that's, yeah, nothing wrong back then. I don't remember anything like crazy. I do have another anecdote. You fast forward to 2019, and we're hosting our annual community gathering in Spain, in Valencia, called Sesame Summit. And there, I'm emceeing one day and like the full day. And in the afternoon, like we were getting to the end. It was like probably like a couple of hours left of content. And in the afternoon, suddenly the power goes out. Like, no more electricity. So that was a first, because suddenly, like if you had problem with slides or a clicker, that's one thing. If you have someone late, you have to fill, that's another thing. But here, if you don't have electricity, basically you cannot do anything at a conference. Right?
yeah,
There's no microphone, there's nothing working. But you cannot really just leave the room empty like that. You have an audience there. So suddenly we had to improvise something. I had one of my colleagues, Suzanne, joining me on stage, and I remember there's a photo of us like screaming like this, so that people can, or shouting out, so that people can hear us. But then we got the power back in like probably like 10 or 15 minutes. So we just played a little game, and that was it.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think that that thing about live is, and that's one of the reasons why I'm excited about this show and this format is, it's authentic. You want something once said can't be taken back. So and you have little bloopers. Bad things happen. Technology has glitches and what have you. The thing Ben was referencing, the first day of our event, B2B Rocks, we had 3 stages. One of the tents blew down off the stage. Everyone scattered from the stage. Like 150 people took off from the stage. And you're like, wow, if this is how our day is going to start, this is going to be a challenging day. I remember going to see our CEO, and he's like, yeah, keep calm. Things will work out. And we just changed the format slightly and kept going. And I think, interestingly enough, I think this format is an offshoot of that, because I really enjoy doing the live stuff. I really enjoy doing what we're doing today, the conversations about stuff. We're going to talk about a little bit different stuff. We talked about emceeing. You're kind of a serial founder. You've founded several companies. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know if I would call myself serial entrepreneur because for me it sounds like you've been successfully, founding different businesses and sort of cash out or sold them or something like that. But I'm definitely someone who prefers to run a business rather than being an employee at a company. And that's something I've been doing since I was 23, which is the first time I actually created a business. So that's for sure. And back then, 20 when I'm talking about when I was 23, I was still a student, and on the side, I was starting to do some freelance work, and I thought, okay, let's incorporate a company because maybe I need to hire more people to do the work. And that was very small. I was living in Spain, so it's like never meant to be a big thing. But that was the first time I actually tried entrepreneurship.
But I mean, did you ever have any fears, or that was just like a natural step for you as evolutionary, or was there any like
Yeah,
revolutionary thought in your head like,
no, no,
did you?
no,
No.
no. I'm still like I hope that right now what we're doing might be the step that is more revolutionary, if we want to use this word, or it's coming next after this, right? But back then it was just sort of an opportunity or natural, thinking. I guess that from my family background, the fact that I had some of my, like I have been exposed to people doing sales, running their own business, that gave me a more confidence to go there and do it. And but it was never, I don't think I ever had fear around doing a business. And at the same time, it wasn't because I had that sort of crazy revolutionary idea that would change the world. It was just like, oh, there's business to do. How do I do it? Freelancing is not enough. Okay, let's incorporate.
Yeah. Just this is kind of a segue, but it's interesting your take on like I'm not a serial entrepreneur. I'm not sure I would call myself that because I haven't cashed out and sold out, and I'm American, and we have this horrible game we play in the United States called baseball, which very few foreigners can understand. But there's some philosophical aspects to baseball, which is when you try and hit the ball, the most successful all time, the people who try and hit the ball hit 4 times out of 10. That means we say he failed 6 times out of 10. A really good baseball player hits the ball 3 times out of 10. That means he fails 7 times out of 10. So, and I'm not sure starting a company and having it not pop is even considered failure either. I guess if you want to be a multimillionaire, it is, or a multi-billionaire, which is real money today. But I'd still say for me, in my book, you're still a
Fair enough.
serial
No,
entrepreneur. Yeah.
and you're right. Like I maybe that's also something that you mentioned the culture in the US around entrepreneurship, and things have changed here in Europe or at least in France. But it's true that there is a different thinking or mindset around what it means to be an entrepreneur, to be successful, to fail, etc. The, yeah, we can dive in, a bit more on this topic if you want, down the road. But that's definitely something that we have learned, and say we collectively in France, for example, in the startup ecosystem, there is an evolution of the mindset.
Yeah.
You will see more and more young people who reply to those surveys saying that they will consider running their own business, and that's a big change from the mindset of the French people, but also like generally speaking, Western Europe, where the number one choice will be to be an employee or to work for the state, to be a fonctionnaire, as we say
Yeah.
here. So that's changing.
Yeah. I wonder, yeah, it's interesting the educational system because the people who are in the educational system in most cases are functionaries, and I wonder the effects of that on the business culture. I believe French business culture. I believe European business culture. I know French culture better, but I believe it is changing. But change is hard. I think personal level, on a societal level, in a company, it's not easy as well. So that's understood. Um, so prepping for this to have you on board, so I went and signed up for kind of your new concept, Sesamers.
Yeah.
Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, you can pronounce it this way. We tend to say sesame, like so sesamers,
Yeah.
but whatever works for you. I know
Okay.
the name is a bit random, so it's okay.
Well, like okay. Yeah, it makes me think of like
So how was it? Like, how much time did it take you to create your profile? How was it? Tell me it was, easy and fast, or
and intuitive,
it was
right?
painful. Yeah.
Okay, so I went and signed up. I created my profile. All that seemed pretty straightforward. And then basically, I'm going to SaaStock next week.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be there, right? Are you
Yeah, it
go?
can be, but I'm not sure yet. I'm
Okay.
doing less trips than I used to. But
Uh,
tell me, what's going
okay.
on?
Well, it'd just be good if you go there that I make you buy me a beer. Signed up for it and then just saw other people who were going to be at that event.
Yeah.
And then I think using the keywords like the meta tags I associated with me, it kind of associated me with those same people. And then I think if I understood correctly, I could kind of like those people. And if they're up, if they want to meet with me, they can respond in kind, if I understood correctly. And we can set
Yeah,
up.
well, yeah, that's kind of the starting point. So the product right now is pretty simple. It's actually an MVP where it's working, but it's not fully covering the full vision here. Basically, you can find people who are going or are sharing the same event interest as you do, and that allows you to connect with them in advance or afterwards. So you can create a chat, like a LinkedIn, chat type of thing. It's not very straightforward. And you can also, but not with everybody, because not everybody has fully set up their profile, but you can also connect your calendar. And we have roughly like 20% of the users who have done it. And if they do, if it is connected, then you can request a meeting the way you would do it with Calendly, meaning that the meeting is already in the schedule of the other side. Of course, the other person can accept or refuse, but you are offering a meeting directly in the calendar of the other person. And that's it. That's what it does. Okay. But what is important here and what it matters is that we build this as an answer to what we've seen with early stage founders struggling to build their network from scratch. And events are very powerful, maybe
Yeah.
the number one place where you can start building a network if you don't really have one, or nurture your existing network or expand it, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're an early stage founder, you don't really have that network yet, you go to an event, right? And that's how you start it. But it's super hard to just get two or three, relevant meetings with people, during that event or schedule, ahead of the event. So that's kind of where we say, okay, let's try to fix that, specific problem so that founders, investors can, see each other ahead of an event, have a talk, have a meeting. If they want to meet in person during the event, they can do that as well. They can use the solution provided by the event as well. But we are adding a layer of potential serendipity to these, people who don't have yet a good network.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this that goes back to something that I see in technology, which is technology increasingly, like I'm a marketer, and increasingly we're using data in marketing. So
Yeah.
you have to understand the data, and we're in an industry that is, yeah, I think in many ways it's never been easier to start a company in our industry because so much of the technology is already out of the box. You can buy pieces, chunks of the technology already ready made. But at the same time, our industry is still a very human industry. It comes back to contacts. It comes back to relationships. You have to build and nurture those relationships. You have to start them off. And thank goodness, because that human element is important. And the same thing, it goes back to starting a company. I think it's never been easier, but I think also customers have never been as demanding. We really want, like, it takes more than ever to get someone's confidence when they look at your webpage and go, oh yeah, this looks like a company I might want to work with. And so that's part of the challenge there too. Well, how long have you
So
been?
just give me a quick one, about that particular topic. One of the reasons why networking is important for kind of anyone, but it's particular for entrepreneurs, is because it's very hard to be top of mind of anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's kind of one of the underlying, success for like reason for success or factors of success. And it's like we could talk the entire show about, okay, how does networking work at events, how it is in Europe, how it is in North America, how it is in Asia. There's a lot of content already out there around how do you network in general, in particular during events. Actually, I'm going to do like a quick pitch here myself. You go to YouTube, search my name, you'll find a series of video that we did already like back in 2019, I think, where I'm like giving short, like 2 or 3 minute bits of knowledge around how do you do this stuff at events. Like how do you manage business cards? How do you how do you run the floor to connect with startups during an event? Like very practical stuff. I'm trying to say like here, and that's just, I know it's a big segue, but that's one of the things that I think I learned down the road. I didn't know at the beginning, and it's about like this top of mind thing. It's like, how do I make sure that you think of me the next time you have a show like this, and I'm top of mind, right? The best way to do that is to, be exposed to you regularly. There's different ways of doing it. Of course, I can do that by creating content. For example, if I'm, a marketer and I want to be top of mind, well, I put content out there. And then, as a customer, I will remember the brand because I've seen their content and it's like more top of mind than another one that is not doing it. Coming back to relationship building, if I see you even just once a year, you will be, higher on my memory, right? On this top of mind, ranking type of thing, than if I see you every 3 years. And if you multiply these touch points, then chances are next time I have an opportunity or business opportunity or a job offer, like stuff like that, and that don't get exposed, online. You're gonna get that, just by going to Google and searching for it. This type of, knowledge or opportunity sharing, I'll think of you. And if I see you every 3 months, which is what I would, experience pre-COVID with events from our community, meeting those people so regularly, not only you're creating a bond, but you also are top of mind for them, and I'm top of mind for, they are top of mind for me. So I hope it was straightforward. It's a long segue, but being top of mind is very, very hard to achieve. And going to events and networking is one of the factor that gives you this type of, outcome.
Well, we talk about a picture being worth 1,000 words. But also, like, when you share a moment with someone, like if you're with someone and they say something and you're like, oh, that was a remarkably insightful thing that they said, or something like that, or you have the opportunity to speak in front of them, and let's say you pitch someone on some idea that you're working on, and they appreciate that idea, you've made a connection. And that human connection, that's priceless. And I always tell people that I work with on communication and marketing, I'm like, there's logic and then there's emotion. And I said logic is what we do, it's how we do it, but emotion is why we do it. And so you gotta, like, you won't get in bed with a partner that you don't feel confident with or that you don't like. And what I mean by a business partner, get in bed, Ben.
I
Just
didn't say anything.
just so you know. Um, so, but that's a really American expression, get in bed. I don't know where that comes from, but there's no sexual connotation there, everybody. Just, I'm not harassing Ben. Um, but you really have to like people, and I think more and more, even employees, it's the same thing. Like, we get employees. That's why we want them to meet the whole team to see if they're able to connect, if there's an emotional connection there, because that's going to be linked to loyalty and performance and all these other aspects, which are so important. Where did you get the idea for Sesame? When did you come up with it? Where did the idea come from?
So the idea per se is not that original. Like when I talk to founders, and whenever there's a founder who tells you or me that their idea is kind of, super unique, and you ask them, okay, who are your competitors? Typical, question you ask during a pitch, they'll tell you, well, none, right? Like, okay, BS out, right? Like you
Yeah.
haven't done your market research, or you don't really know your industry that well. In our case, there was already a wave of, products that emerged like 10 years plus ago
Yeah.
in the category of social events. And it was back in the days where Facebook API was a lot more accessible. So you would have platforms that will help you in the business world see who among your network and your network is going to be at a certain event, right? You have like companies like Plantcast and Lanyard, and those businesses were acquired or don't exist anymore, but that already existed. So the entire concepts of social events is nothing innovative per se. Nowadays, there is a new series of companies that emerged in the B2C space. So again, you're going to a music festival, you want to go with your friends or make new friends from your existing circle of friends, right? You can use rl.com to do that, and that will help you kind of have a better experience. You're not like, it's this sort of social element of a B2C event. In the B2B space right now, there's nothing really to do that. You could think that, LinkedIn could do it. It's kind of the natural, player to build something like that. But they are not really. And the event category within LinkedIn is still pretty much in its infancy. There are, several businesses in the US that are targeting something similar, but a lot more driven around sales for enterprise. So covering trade shows, like a different type of events than the one that we currently work with that are more like for startups and investors. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is that the idea is not that crazy revolutionary at all. It's just that the timing is interesting because of the post-COVID time. There's two factors that you want to take into account. One, that people were, into like lockdown, and they were forced in online virtual events, and they didn't really have a good experience around network building, meaning that online events were very good in the form of, democratization of access to content and thought leadership. But when it comes to networking, impossible to compare with like an in-person experience. That's what everybody will tell you after those 2 years of lockdown here in Europe. And the second factor, there's a positive one, is that a lot of people are a lot more open to online meetings. Like just generally speaking, the category of doing a meeting with someone virtually expanded dramatically. You can see that on Zoom. We're doing this
Yeah.
on Twitch, Google Meet, like this, like all these players. So now suddenly having a meeting with someone online is a lot more accessible, meaning that people who are not really using those type of software are now using it. So those two factors, you come then together and say, okay, what if we could build something that is super straightforward, that allows a founder in 2 clicks to request a meeting with someone relevant ahead of an event that they're going to be attending, both of them. If we do that well, they're going to get an experience that is far better just out of 2 or 3 meetings than without it. Like it's like one of those things where it's like a multiplying effect, like if I've been able to interact with some people ahead of a conference I'm attending, then I know that my experience there is going to be better for sure, because I would have, again, on top of mind of those people, I remove some uncertainty around what I'm going to be doing there. I save the icebreaker time for whatever meeting I'm going to do with them in person. Or if it wasn't really relevant, I don't need to do that meeting anymore in person. I can use that time that I'm going to spend ROL to do something else. Again, that was the idea. So we built something, a first iteration of this back in like at the end of 2019, so pre-COVID, then COVID hit, so we stopped that. We had to ditch almost everything that we were building. It was more like a CRM type of solution, what we're doing back then for companies that are attending many events as part of their marketing or sales. And then we went back to the drawing board kind of a year ago, interviewed a lot of founders. So we did like around 50 interviews with from pre-seed to Series A founders to understand what was missing, and that's what we built.
Oh, so you went and really did your marketing research and interesting. Yeah, I'm thinking about it like as we go forward and build our community and seek to do this. I wonder. We got to build a Twitch integration. We got to figure out the Twitch API and I don't know. We'll have to.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Yourself? Like,
Yeah.
When you use the word community, because I wrote a piece about that again a year and a half ago, something like that. So like when we were already past the first wave of COVID, suddenly everybody started to talk about community within the event industry. So the word was already there. It's not a new thing, but suddenly like event organizers were supposed to be community builders. It was like a big thing.
Yeah.
And I wrote about that because I don't really trust this to be accurate. Like
I think that's
different jobs, 2 different missions. Event organizers, the real ones, like the pro ones, they're not supposed to be community builders. So what is it that you call community?
Well, that's a really good question, because I think it's funny as you said that. I was thinking about like there's this concept in business, greenwashing, where you do, and I think what you're talking about is community washing a little bit when you have an idea. And so that's a really fair question, and we're gonna have to cut the show short. No, I'm sorry. Uh, no hard questions for you. No, it's interesting. I don't know. I can't speak for everybody. I know.
And you can let me
Hold
calculate.
on, hold on. No, no, let me just give a stab at it. I think one. I've always worked for a higher mission. So the thing that professionally, which makes me most passionate, is to see my team, see my colleagues, and by extension of that, see my community succeed. And then our sector of interest, which is the SaaS and technology. I grew up around this stuff in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley, and I guess what I think is the most exciting aspect of this, as the tendrils of this spread out from Silicon Valley to Europe to Asia to the four corners of the globe, is that these people are future leaders, and that I want to see them empowered to lead locally. And so in the end, I kind of like it's like a holy mission for me. Now, I just like to point out I'm probably don't sleep properly and have other issues and all sorts of stuff. But to me, it's like a holy mission. I'd love to see these ideas spread out, maybe even into Russia right now. Russia could use some of these ideas even. Oops, we shouldn't supposed to talk politics, but I just think it would be great to have empowered people everywhere that feel that they can really act. I mean, even one of the problems I see, like people when they look at their democracies right now, is that they feel like they can't have an impact, or the world, they feel like they can't have an impact. And whatever mechanism, whether it's sports or whatever have you, I think people should feel like they should be able to have an impact. So in that sense, I'd say we have a mission to. I've always tried to encapsulate a mission to help our communities. So I guess I use that language in support of that. But it's a really fair question, and it's true, because there are some conflicts of interest, and so that's a really fair thing to ask. So, but what were you going to say? What were you
No,
going to
no,
say?
I
Yeah.
was telling you that in most businesses, and I mean, what you just said is inspiring. Again, like I understand where it comes from, and that it's actually what motivates you to
Yeah.
do what you're doing, and what we're doing right now, right? It's to share some knowledge, inspire some people, you know,
Yeah.
help, like, do this for the community, right? There's no money involved in what we're doing right now. I was telling you, like, if I help you, the answer right now, I guess, for your businesses, for most businesses, it's like uh, it's like a database. Like
Yeah.
your community is basically a list of emails
Hmm.
with maybe more information about the people behind those emails, but it is like this is it.
Yeah.
This is what it is for most people.
Around a common interest. Exactly right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I'm reading it right now from this article that I was mentioning that I wrote in 2020. Uh, the definition of a community is a social, religious, occupational, or other group sharing common characteristics or interests, and perceived or perceiving itself as distinct in some respect from the larger society within which it exists.
Yeah.
That's the definition, right? That is this.
Yeah. We're special, and we're a subset. We're not like you. So it sounds it could almost be directly from the Bible.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
uh,
very religious in that in its conception, in its reason raison d'être, as we say in French.
yeah, that's one of the few words from French that made it directly into English, and we actually use it. Hey, just a quick question here. This has been. I am getting fascinated just because it's changed. How we work has changed so much. You were talking about we do more online events, we do more webinars, we're more likely to take meetings. Can you just talk about what is your personal stack of software you use? What are the softwares like? Are there any SaaSes you use on a daily basis?
Yeah, of course. Many of them. I'm actually the one in the company that tend to test the software at first. I guess that a lot of small businesses like us, the CEO is the one kind of trying stuff before bringing them to the company stack. We So the first one, and it's maybe one of the most interesting to discuss in detail, is our CRM.
Mm-hmm.
We've been using HubSpot for several years, thanks to a heavy discount that they are offering to startups or communities. After we managed to keep that, partnership with them for several years, we realized that we couldn't continue using it because it would be too expensive. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm describing like the journey of anyone who's been using HubSpot. So the way they do it is very clever. Is that basically the first year, if you run, you join HubSpot for startups, is that you're gonna get like 95% discount
Yeah.
on their price, and they would give you kind of a bundle of like they will give you the bundle, the sort of all-in services that they have. So like the marketing one, the sales one, even the website one, the ticket one, like everything, right? Like even if you don't need it, right? It will be kind of included. And basically as time passes by, even if we were managing to renew this special deal, we were expanding the use of HubSpot with or without our intention. Like it was just getting, they were just including more and more features in the package.
Yeah.
We were happy to pay a little bit more every year because we were definitely taking advantage of the software. It's a great suite of software. Like again,
Yeah.
I have nothing against HubSpot. But then when we couldn't continue this, we would basically have to pay 3,000 euros a month.
Yeah.
That was it. That's like, hey, next year, like you were
And
paying 300, next
and
year you're gonna be at 3,000.
of course they have really smart product marketing and product pricing people that also put in a thing for the number of contacts.
Yeah.
So you pay for functionality, but you also have the number of contacts. And I've done a startup thing and used HubSpot. I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's like the cocaine model. They give you a free
Yeah.
year's supply, and then you're hooked.
Yeah.
Okay, so keep going. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
So the renewal of our HubSpot, partnership was one of those stressful moments at the beginning of the year, where I was like, let's see if we manage to renew the deal. And so COVID happened, so they were kind with us, so we managed to keep that, kind of another year. And then early 2022, we moved away. We didn't manage to renew any special offer. So we moved to another one. So we've been benchmarking CRM like everybody does, looking at the websites, that do this type of comparison, like yours as well. And we ended up using one that I'm laughing because I found it's like one of those underdog, like not it's not very well known, but it does the job, and it's called Engage Bay. So I don't know
Engage
if
Bay.
yeah, it's the company is out of India. They are quite big. They have all you need basically.
Okay.
It's just not as intuitive. It's not as easy maybe as HubSpot, but it does the core of what we needed, which was to manage, big list, and to track, the sales activity directly from Gmail. So there's like the templates and all that story, the typical stuff. And that was it. So now we're using it for both, the sales activity and the marketing activity. We're probably using like 10 or 15% of what the software does,
Mm-hmm.
but the pricing is extremely competitive because we pay like $50 per seat.
Yeah. Yeah, that pricing on HubSpot after the first year, I think it's 90% discount the first year, then it's like 70 or 50
Yeah.
the
Mm.
second year, and then like the third year you're at like 20%. And that's when your manager usually comes and sees you and he's like, "Oh, this is really expensive. This is like, 1,500 a month for this thing." And
Yeah.
but on the other hand, it's, it does so much.
No, the problem we had, sorry if I cut you
Yeah,
here, but
no.
one of the reasons why is that we were not in a position to really integrate everything we were doing on HubSpot,
Yeah.
meaning that we are using other software, coming to your initial question,
Yeah.
to do the other functions of the business. Like, for example, we run several newsletters, and it didn't make sense to do them on HubSpot. HubSpot wouldn't have the features that a pure email management system, would, offer. And we started a new one using MailerLite, which is like a European-based company. Very good pricing, very competitive, and we moved our old newsletter that we were hosting on SendGrid. Same story. We were using SendGrid that is supposed to be for transactional emails, meaning the one that you send to your users. We're using it for marketing emails
Right.
because we had like a plan with them from many years ago that was almost free, etc., etc. Like you can see, I like free stuff.
You like free stuff.
But we started a new one on MetaLite. Kind of loved it. The interface, so easy to use. And we moved our old legacy newsletter to this. So again, like I have, like or purely on the newsletter side, we are managing around like 30,000 contacts.
Yeah.
Uh, so if I do that on HubSpot, it's too expensive.
It's too
Like it
expensive.
makes
Yeah.
no sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Unfo-
I end up, splitting with different services, but it works. It's like at the end for a company of our size, it's not worth the monetary value is not worth it. Like I guess if I would be maybe slightly bigger, maybe if I'm a lot bigger, this is when I really want to have this sort of purely integrated, offering, and where marketing will complain about the fact that we don't have the website on HubSpot, right? Because they wouldn't see the same amount of data and information about our customers than if it is. So you see a lot of companies that are using HubSpot as well for their website, and it makes sense. Like I understand. Like if you
yeah.
want to have everything in one place, do it with them.
Yeah. 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 There's I didn't I find a lot of stuff that they do really intuitive, but their web development is not one of them. But great product, and I think the thing is when you look at like the videos of how people are using it on the internet, is that very quickly and their academy, you realize you can learn to use this very quickly.
Yeah.
But also that takes money, and they make people pay for it, and the right to do it. But that's the great thing about our industry, is that there will be other up and comers, and someone will try and knock them off their place, and they will or they won't succeed, or maybe HubSpot will just buy them. Who knows? What about any other softwares you're using a lot? The
Yeah,
big
we of course we're using Slack, we're using Notion, we're using the entire G Suite. These are like the daily stuff that we use.
Okay, the foundation. I just think of it
Yeah,
like pillars. Um, Out of curiosity, since you seem to have good ideas, I was looking at social media marketing tools, like automation tools to manage your
yeah,
posts. Do you
yeah,
guys have anything like that?
yeah. We've been using um, what is it? Hootsuite. Yeah,
So I had a Hootsuite plan many years ago that was free,
yeah,
and I kind of
yeah. Same.
and I abandoned it.
And
Uh,
now you have to take like yeah,
now
it's kind of.
it's
I mean,
super.
it's not again. It's
Yeah,
expensive, but relatively to what, right? Like it's always the same question.
yeah. You do gain productivity, but it's always kind of like it's still money.
Yeah, and
So,
also like one of the challenges, it's like one of the clever thing in their pricing is that it depends, how many platforms you're posting to, and some of them are not fully integrated. So like at the end of the day, if you want to mention people properly on LinkedIn, maybe some of like Hootsuite might not be the most efficient one versus another competitor, right?
right.
It's kind of one of the issue here is that so we have two brands that we manage on social, so Sesamers and Startup Sesame, and so like to LinkedIn, to Facebook, to
Yeah.
Twitters, like all that story.
So your pricing is
So
like boom, 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 boom.
yeah, so but at the same time, that's exactly the question. If I would ask people in our team who are doing it, it's actually the question when there was this moment of peak of work, you're like, oh, that can be tricky. Should we go and pay for Hootsuite? Like
Yeah.
it's always like that. It's like, oh, next month we're gonna have that happening. There's maybe a bunch of events where we know we're gonna be doing a lot of social media coverage. Shouldn't we just pay those $60 for that month? Like
Yeah.
this is not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about like something that is 60 euros. Like it's not like
Yeah.
600 euros.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
money's money. So interesting. Um, what was I going to talk about? Interestingly enough, have you're in Paris, right?
yeah.
Have you noticed any change in tech or business atmosphere in Paris? Because, of course, in the US, all these VCs we're talking about, the companies need to focus more on sustainable growth as opposed to growth at all costs and things like that. Have you noticed any? I mean, I think a lot of people pay this lip service, but I think the VCs are motivated by greed. Eventually, and they have a lot of dry powder. Eventually, they're going to want to
Yeah.
invest that money. So, have you noticed any real shift, or is that something you're up to speed on, or have an interest in, or?
Yeah, so from what I hear, from others, the situation here is kind of it's a mix. It's not like so straightforward. It's not black or white. It's pretty gray, meaning that there is definitely a reduction of the amount of investment that is being made. There is, of course, diminution of valuation, but that's like another topic because valuation like last year valuation were insanely high and not accurate at all. So this is happening, but at the same time, and that's I'm referring to, I think numbers that were published like this week. Um, it seems like France is one of the countries in Europe where the situation is better than in others. I'm talking really about like the VC investment in startups and so on.
Yeah.
Like you see the numbers from the UK, from Germany, from kind of all Western Europe, all everything crashing. Like
Yeah.
so the crash is happening here as well, but it's a lot less apparently than other markets. And also one of the things that I was mentioning, we were discussing with some friends who are operating like other European capital, it's I know that the economy is not in a good like there's like either we're already in a recession or we're about to be in one, but at the same time that's what is kind of counterintuitive, again particularly here in France or in Paris. There's work, like the unemployment level in France has never been that low for like 15 years.
Yeah, the same thing in the U.S. by the way, and
Yeah,
and that's yeah. So you're right on. You're spot on. Yeah.
and that's because the injection of money that we got here, like I know it's not something that I don't know. I guess it's not something sustainable, but at the end of the day, the situation right now like this, like people struggling to find talent in tech.
Yeah.
That's what's going on. So I'm curious to see how it will unfold. Um, but yeah, the main risk that I can see, and especially here in France right now this week, is linked to external factors, and in particular the conflict in Ukraine and the shortage of gas, and oil and all that. That's so the problem we have in France right now is oil shortage, and I've seen this commented in the US, is because of a strike of the workers of the biggest oil, manufacturer in France, who are expecting a salary rise of 10% because they've seen that their company for which they work as employees has made huge benefits out of the raising price of oil, and they're
Yeah.
like, okay, well, give us a rise as well.
Yeah. Can
So
we have a little bit? Yeah.
yeah, that's why there is this problem right now here. It's very different from maybe other countries.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff that we see is going on is geopolitical, and in the
Yeah,
U.S. right now we've kind of got like mixed signals. There's some red signals, there's some yellow signals, there's some green signals like the employment market, but actually interest rates, which the Fed controls, they really want to see all red signals. And once they see that the employment market is slowing down and unemployment is picking up, then they'll start lowering interest rates again, but they're not going to lower interest rates until employment falls off, and of course Europe is probably going to follow the US, so that'll be part of that. But it'll be interesting. I think there's also a flight to quality. I remember I'm old enough to remember the dot bomb thing, and the lesson there is like, hey, invest in serious companies.
yeah.
And I think this is we're not anything near, we didn't lose the value we lost in the .com era or anything close to that, but I think the lesson here is that VCs are like, you know getting more serious, even more demanding about like the questions like, okay, who's on your board, who makes up your company, what's the business model again, how are you going to grow, and really doing their homework. And so there's going to be a flight to quality. But I think that companies are gonna, VCs and other people are gonna spend more money to get in on scale ups as well, on quality scale ups. So all these things, there's good parts, there's bad parts, and I think we're just kind of back to a leveling out. But I don't see anything changing to fundamentally change. I mean, I always go back to the analogy if you're cutting wheat, right? And it's like if you could go back because you didn't have to buy all the tech tools today and go back to cutting wheat with a scythe and doing it manually, would you do that? No. The reason why is bread is at a near historically cheap price is because we all have all this technology and all this stuff and all this specialization. And that's kind of the whole value proposition of tech in a lot of way, which it helps us do things better or faster or more efficiently or something like that.
So there is one thing here that I don't think we really can cover that, and I'm not the expert to talk about that, but there is the biggest factor that will really, really make this, change. Like what you're saying, I agree with you. Like it's like
Yeah.
it will, like the tech industry survived, the bubble. they will survive this one. But the bigger question is around is around climate change and around the challenges that we're facing as a society on the sustainability side of things. And I think if we live the same summer, or maybe it's going to be even worse next year to the one that we lived in 2022, at least here in Western Europe, then people will start to really sort of get it and start changing some of their consumption patterns and so on and so on. So if I was like, what I'm trying to say here, because we're talking about SaaS, and really I don't want to be like, again, I'm not an
Yeah.
expert.
Yeah.
The show is not supposed to be like, oh, this is going to be the end of the world. But if I was a SaaS founder whose revenue relies on the on the type of employment that people have currently in cities, and that you, for example, you already had a problem with the first lockdown because some people left the city, there was a lot of remote work happening, da, da, da. If that didn't create an opportunity for you, what's coming up next will crush you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, the one thing that this industry has shown a willingness unlike any other industry to change and evolve. And I mean, it reminds me, our industry reminds me a little bit of like an Ouroboros, which is a Celtic symbol. It's the serpent that's eating its own tail. Because we see these companies get started up and then they get bought out, and then a new one comes to replace them, and then that company succeeds and eats the other one. I was talking about Adobe bought Figma
Yeah.
at 20 billion. And now Canva, I was reading, is talking about doing a word processor to take on Microsoft Word and Google Sheets. And I'm like, okay, if you think you can take on Google and Microsoft Canva, you guys are worth over 20 billion. So, and you did that in just a couple years. So why not? But so it's just that the only constant in our industry is change. So I think you're right on about those things. It's also interesting to see there's a lot of stuff going on with tech where we're partnering around ecology and sustainability and circular economy. And we can only hope that that continues. And we'll try and get some people on here to speak about impact. Listen, I wanted to move to some segues because unfortunately there's so much to talk about and you're such an interesting guy. You started, so you went back, went and looked at this. One thing I wanted to touch on was your education.
Yeah.
So you have a couple degrees in business.
But before that, I studied social science
and anthropology.
Yeah.
So has that helped you in your work?
Yeah, of course.
How that's a little counterintuitive. How has that helped you in your work, having studied sociology and anthropology?
So I know that social science in general is not really like the place where you would find entrepreneurs. Like, I know it's like an area of study where you would end up either working as a professor or a teacher and so on. And there's like not a lot of job opportunities after you do a PhD in anthropology, type of thing. But the truth is that there is a lot of hiring happening in tech nowadays, right? I'm not talking like when back in my days when I was studying, and I wasn't studying this to work in tech. But right now, there's a lot of hiring, a lot of hires done in tech companies from that type of talent. Meaning that if you're studying, if you're a trained anthropologist or sociologist or economist, and when I talk about economist, I'm really talking about the social science field, because I know that economist is also math and so on, but there is a lot of people who are studying economy that are doing it in the social science field. You can get hired at Amazon right now. Like, yeah. I think Amazon is employing like 400 economists currently, and they're employing them for critical thinking, for social studies type of knowledge, not for the math. Not because they can do like a P&L. That's not the reason why they are hiring them. So I would say that it's it's an obvious thing for me to say this way, but basically the fact that you bring to the table a perspective around what it means to live together, to have certain form of norms, how you regulate business, economy, society, and so on, is of added value. Because down the road, like, I would expect that, for me at least, on my own experience, my capacity to interact with different cultures Like we built a business from day one that was meant to be at least European, if not more. But we the capacity to interact with different cultures, to have a certain, um, you know, like to try to not be like, for example, we tend to think that French people are very arrogant and so on. Well, that is something that hopefully by learning from others cultures and so on, you don't bring to the table, and you're more educated,
Yeah.
you have more sort of a distance, your self-awareness is higher. So all of these, I think, are very good qualities when you're doing a business, basically. And I'm not saying you cannot get them, from an MBA. I'm just saying that there's other ways to get this type of skills that are so valuable in the business world. I hope
I,
that answers your question. I
yeah,
guess
yeah,
I
yeah.
went
No,
a
no,
bit
no, no.
far right now.
That's fine. I guess I just wrote in our chat. I just wrote in the chat. Read anything and everything.
Yeah.
And I mean, I studied English literature, so it was kind of a trick question that got me to talk about myself. So I studied English literature, and when I first started working in technology, people are like, "What can you do?" And I'm like, "Well, I can read, I can write, I can organize my thoughts." And so those were the things in the beginning, and it's helped me so much throughout my career. And I never went and studied technology, but I became a technical engineer on the sales side, and then went into sales and marketing, and so it didn't hold me back. And I think how it helped me is I thought differently than my peers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to fall into groupthink, and I think when we think differently, we look at things differently. We bring different problem solving skills to a thing. And so when you talk about like business strategy and you quote Sun Tzu, an ancient Chinese general, it sounds somewhat more authoritative. So that's just that's just why I asked you that. Um,
No, I agreed. I agreed. And also, like one thing that I could mention that's similar to what you just expressed is that I spend most of my time uh, as a CEO of a company. I don't know if it's a good thing, like if my my shareholders listen to it, like what I spend most of my time like writing and talking.
yeah,
That's what I do.
yeah,
Like, and even if you think about it, I know I'm not a developer, I don't have that skill set, but developer will also kind of be considered as a writer down the road. So like you spend your time writing and talking.
yeah,
And if that is what you're going to be doing to run a company, that's at the end of the day, that's what you spend most of your time doing, then you will have a lot more to write and talk about if you expose yourself to other other type of knowledge than business knowledge. And
yeah.
of course, I love like the MFM podcast, which is the one, the Max First Million podcast by Sam Parr and Sean Pori. So I like business
Yeah,
content. I'm not saying that I don't like it. I'm
but
just
just
saying
don't limit yourself to
more.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't know if you know the famous Steve Jobs story, but he, while he was starting Apple, he was taking, or maybe it was the Macintosh when they were building the Macintosh. He was taking a calligraphy class, and so he got really
Yeah.
passionate about fonts, and so that's why Macintosh had so many iconic fonts, and they did such a great job. Um, so I have an old Mac still, and I showed my kids that, and they're like, "Really? You used computers like that?" And I'm like, "Man, that thing was revolutionary." And they're like, "Uh-huh, sure." Um, so we called you, or I called you. You defended it, but I called you a serial entrepreneur. One of your first companies, I think, was actually a record label.
Yeah. So it's a bit, it's a kind of at the same time I created two activities under the same company.
Yeah.
Uh, and I said, that I explained earlier that the activity was pretty much opportunistic. I was like, I had work that I was doing as a freelancer, and I was like, oh, maybe I should, incorporate so I can hire people to help me do that work, right? And the work we were doing was mostly related to field research in the economic and social science space. So I had clients that were basically research centers or labs from the university who were conducting surveys about agriculture, economy, stuff like that. Like, don't ask me, it's another life, but basically, I would hire more people to do these surveys, right?
Okay.
And we're on the ground sending people to do interviews with farmers. That's the
Okay.
type of thing we're doing.
Okay.
And at the very same time, I was playing a band, like I was, singing in the band, and we wanted to release our like the EP that we had recorded. The record label was telling us, like not record label, no, the studio where we had recorded that, a short album told us the price to print some copies because back then, I'm talking about 2004, we were still doing CDs, right? And I was like, wait, so for that amount of money, I can register a record label
Yeah.
with my own company, like
Yeah.
register the brand,
Right.
sign up for the authorization to be a record producer, book the work to a printing company myself, and that will cost us the same amount of money. But in the process, I would have created a record label,
Yeah.
and that's what I did. Like that's what I'm trying to say is that it was inside the same company, but it was two different activities. And the record label continued to work for 6 years, and we had like a very particular, quite a particular approach because we were supporting free download of music. There was a big movement back then around alternative copyright, to using Creative Commons licenses to publish work online and make it available for remix and so on. And so by doing this, we got a lot of like interest from independent artists to release their music with us. And throughout this time of those 6 years, we released more than 50 different artists with the brand. And
Yeah.
then yeah, that's another life.
That's really cool. It's funny because there's some industries that are like that. It's the same thing. I have some experience in the book publishing industry, and like for the amount of money it costs you to publish a book with somebody and get somebody to print your book, you're better off just starting your own publishing label.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't make any sense. So, and then of course you have other opportunities as well. But that was just a segue into a question, which is our name is B2B Rocks. So, is there any music that gets you pumped up? Any music you really like to listen to? Any rock songs, or it could even be rap, but any kind of music that really brings out your good energy and gets you in a good flow?
And a good energy, a good flow. That wasn't the question I prepared.
Yeah.
Like I was, thinking about your question of your favorite, rock song, and I think when the event back in June, I mentioned a song from At the Drive-In, which is kind of a post, alt. I don't know what to call that, but it's like post-punk or alt rock type of band from the US, and that was one of my favorite, from the 2000s, type of artist. But if you're asking me what pumps me, what gives me a good vibe, a good mood, I should, just check out, my Spotify playlist because that will, give me the answer. I listen to a lot of like just, how do you call that? Background, sort of lo-fi music when I'm
Yeah.
working. I do a lot of that. I also do a lot of like chill beats, type of things. Um,
Yeah. Anything too intense and it distracts me from my work. So I get your point.
same,
Yeah.
same. But okay, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna give you one that's my friends, at the office, will find it funny. Um, I remember when Rosalia, went out for the first time, so back in 2019 or something. Started to listening to this and sharing it with some of my colleagues at work, and it was her first sort of popular album. I think right now, like her last song is called Despecha, and you can see it on a lot of TikToks. People are using it as a background. That's the type of music that will, kind of give me good mood, and good vibes.
Okay. Well, listen, we're gonna have to start a B2B Rock Spotify list, and maybe we'll put that up on our first song.
I
Um,
don't know if this one will qualify as a rock piece, but
nah, it's okay.
it's fun.
We can fudge the edges. We own the brand. We do as we like. I guess not exactly own. Okay, listen. I really appreciate your time today. Was there anything you wanted to talk about that I didn't ask? Were there anything ideas that popped up or anything you would have had me ask you as far as a question?
No, no, it's very nice. Thank you for having me. You're doing a good job. I hope this is the start of an amazing adventure on Twitch.
Yeah, me too. I think Twitch. We have our community has been growing quite rapidly, but it's still small. We have a big B2B Rocks website on our community on our website. There goes that term community again. We'll see if we can get them over here. I've made the promise to my team that if we can get to 2,000 users over the next 12 months, that I will have a fuchsia mohawk. And so I'll have which would probably add to my Twitch channel if I was rocking a fuchsia mohawk. So we'll do that, and this is, I mean, you are victim. I mean, invitee number one,
Yeah.
and this is really just a conversation about, you know, just trying to, you, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, just trying to share some of the things we've learned. What about, you know, and that's maybe the question I'd end with. What is the big, like, what's your big takeaway? Like, you and I were both old enough to have a few gray hairs. What's your big takeaway? What have you learned about yourself over this, and what have you learned about business? I mean, do you have any, like, big philosophical thing or something like, you know, I always read these things like 10 million to ARR. This is not our first hire. I don't want to go anything like that. That's a little too, I think that's a kind of clickbait. But is there any, like, takeaways from business, or there, or any advice you would give to young entrepreneurs, or young people out there thinking about starting their own SaaS or something like that?
You know, it will come back to the the specialty that we have in that we are experts of events. You know, that's the stuff we work with. I talked already a bit about what it means to network and why it's so critical for anyone in business, and why events are a major factor of success from our point of view. And so I would say, like, if I say it as something insightful, I hope I would say that it is, you know, the place for you as a founder, like you're an early stage founder, you're starting with an idea. Think from day one how you can use this platform, these events, to your best advantage. Go to the meetup, you know, in your areas to connect with other founders who are doing this at the same stage as you, as you're starting with the idea. Learn this, you know, from the beginning, because this is, you know, where you're gonna learn, you know, skills that you can use in all the different stages of your development of your company. And one of the things that we've seen with the program that we used to run, so we were running it what we call an event acceleration program. So we were picking pre-seed seed companies and get them to 6, 7 events a year from our community. And some of the founders, we done that brilliantly because they were good at it. You know, they were good at presenting, at networking. They raised more money faster, and that's a fact. You know, like, if you're doing it properly, if you know how to do it, if you are excited about doing it, events are a factor, you know, of growth. Like, it has an impact on your valuation that is positive, and we know it because we interviewed founders. We know that it is real, and it's one of the things that, you know, it can be counterintuitive, because while you're going to an event, you're not building your product, you're not, you know, it
Yeah,
might look like you're not working, you know, and that can be true. There's also, I know a lot of people who are stagnating. You know, they're not really building a business because they go on the conference circuit, you know, just to be on their, like, to have fun and drink. So I'm not saying that it's an easy and obvious one, but we know that it's proven that it's like RI positive.
so it's not a cause for success, but it's a correlation to success. If you're
Yes.
going and doing these things and you're capitalizing, it's interesting because, even when I talk to young people, I haven't had that experience with founders or entrepreneurs, but I talk with young people looking to get work, and I'm like, go volunteer, go
Yeah.
seek out people working in the industry you want to work, and just tell them you want to talk to them. You're not even looking for a job, just saying you're curious, and ask them what skills you should be building. Just show interest. And so, and I don't think, you know, with my resume, I've never gotten a job by sending my resume to anybody. It's always been by relationships I've started and networking. And even when I talk to people, like, a lot of times, I talk with my French colleagues about going to the university in the United States, the benefits and the disadvantages of that. And they're like, well, it's so expensive. And I'm like, yeah, but then how much is a network from Harvard worth? How much is a network from Stanford worth? If you graduate from Stanford or UC Berkeley, in your class, sometimes, I had a friend that went to UC Berkeley, and they started a startup at the end of his time there, and he's now a gazillionaire. So, again,
So, you know, it's like, if I, you know, if I try to say it in a short sentence, it will be that um, you can make serendipity work for you. That's kind of the idea behind this entire concept. And it's not about, like, the magic of, you know, oh, you bump into someone into the queue at the coffee at a conference. It's a bit more. complex than that. You can,
Yeah.
but what I'm trying to say that you can build that. There's an architecture that you can make. You can create so that this serendipity works for you.
Okay, that's great. And I'm going to Sastock, and so hopefully you'll choose to go there. Are you going to any other events this year? What's the next event you're going to?
I mean, it's so one of the reasons why I'm not sure about what are my plans is because there is another event here in Paris that we work with. It's the client event. It's a big B2B food trade show
Mm-hmm.
called Cial. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like food professionals, new food, new stuff, and it's a client we work with. After that, I'm going to Valencia for the digital summit. So it's on the 25th and 26th of October. Also, an event that we work with as a partner. It's going to be very nice. You should come over. And I'm skipping Web Summit. No Web Summit for me this year. I'm going to Slush, which is 2 weeks after in Helsinki, 15th, 16th, or 16th, 17th of November.
Yeah, I've heard great things about Slush. I'd like to go check that out. Okay, well, listen, good, and we'll try and get we'll get our B2B Rocks Spotify list going and put your song up there. Maybe we'll have a song from each guest. Thank you so much for your time, and well,
Thank you, Steve.
we'll try and check in on you in 6 months and see how far along the MVP is going. Say how you're doing. Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, and good luck with the other shows.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Oh. All right. Well, everybody, so that was our first show with a guest, an external guest, and a lot of fun. Really interesting talking to Ben. Just a really interesting guy. If you are interested in learning more about networking, how to leverage your networks better, I suggest you try and get in touch with him. His website, I think I have it up here. His website is Sesamers. And so this gives you an idea of what they do here. And so you can kind of look at people's profile here. And if you're interested, try and set up a time to meet with them. But I think this concept of serendipity at events, I think serendipity is kind of a bad word here. I think, the truth is if you want to go on a date, you need to ask people out on a date. And so if you want to meet investors, you have to go to places where investors congregate and meet lots of them. And, you're going to fail. You're going to talk to 1,000 investors. You're going to fail thousands of times, but it only takes once. You only have to be successful with a couple of investors. You only have to believe them. And each time you talk to one of these people, an investor, typically, let's see here, we have Ben up here. Here, Orange Ventures. So we'll look at Remy. Every time you talk with one of these guys or ladies, they're going to give you important feedback. They're going to tell you, you're going to learn something about what you thought or what have you. And those are learning opportunities. You're going to improve how you pitch. You're going to improve how you communicate with people. You're going to improve how you listen to people, which is very important. It's good to speak. It's good to pitch. It's better to listen. So I really suggest taking a moment to go check out what Ben, it's Ben Costantini. I'm going to write his name up here. Go watch some of his videos up on YouTube. Ben is a pretty prolific writer and content creator. So go take a look up on some of the stuff he's done about how to leverage these events. And if you have a moment, sign up for Sesamers. I guess it's kind of earliest stage. It isn't all fleshed out. I would take a thing with Remy, but it's maybe not a good time because I don't have an idea or a business company or things started. But anyhow, do check that out. That's all for today's show. I think we'll cut it there. Next Thursday, so that's Thursday the 13th, we're going to have Alex Delive on the show. Alex is a founder. He's a CEO of a company called Collect. So we're going to talk about some of what Collect does, why it's important. We're gonna ask Alex about his personal stack, what he's using, the rock song that gets him going in the day. Personally, I like rap music early in the morning to get pumped up and jump around and do kung fu when I listen to it. So we'll talk to Alex Delive. He's also the guy who originally founded B2B Rocks as a brand. And so we'll talk to him a little bit about the brand and what's happening. So hopefully you'll come in and check in with us on Thursday of this week. And then next week I'll be in Dublin, Ireland. So I'm going to SaaS Talk there. I'll be a speaker talking about what... someone just asked me rap music in the morning. Absolutely. And 90s US rap music like Snoop Dogg and Doc, and that's who I am. I'm an older guy, so it's that 90s rap music. That's my heyday. So we'll be at SaaStalk, and we're gonna do our best to get our technical act together and be able to live, basically Twitch and live LinkedIn feed from SaaStalk, and try and talk to people at SaaStalk and ask them why they're there, what they're doing, what they think of the event, and things like that. So please come check in on Thursday, and then come in next week on Tuesday. And should be a little chaotic, but a lot of fun as well. And hopefully we'll have a good time. And I guess with that, we'll move to our end screen. It's so sad. B2B Rocks is now over for this time. Listen, thank you very much, and you guys have a great day. Bye-bye. See you soon, especially.